Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 19th of July, 2023. Right, everyone, let's get into it. So there is going to be an AMA happening in the Daily Gwei Discord channel this Friday at 11 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, which is 6 p.m. PDT and 3 a.m. CEST. Now, this AMA is not being done by me. It is being done by Merlo from the team at Tax On Chain here. So this will be an AMA all about taxes. And if you're at all curious about taxes, especially Australian taxes, because it is tax season in Australia. For those of you who don't know, Australia's tax season runs mid-year to mid-year, so July 1st to June 30th. That's the Australian financial year. You can ask your questions and put them in the accounting taxes channel in the Discord channel and on the day, or you can ask them beforehand. They'll be answered on the day. And you can check out this announcement. It's in the Discord channel. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. Just wanted to give a shout out there. And thank you again to Merlo and the team for doing this AMA. I'm sure it's going to help a lot of people. All right, so there's a bit of an alpha out of Arbitrum today. So as you guys know, the ETHCC Ethereum conference event is still ongoing, and lots of teams are announcing things, leaking alpha of things, giving talks, all that good stuff there. So Terrence here from the Off-Chain Labs / Pri Labs team shared that permissionless validation is coming soon to Arbitrum. Now, this is pretty cool because I've obviously talked a lot in the past about how these layer 2s as they exist today, most of the time they have like training wheels on them, they have centralized points of failure, they have multi-sigs, they have permissioned validation, permission sequences, things like that, but they're slowly moving towards fully permissionless systems. And now with this announcement or this alpha leak from Terrence here today, we can see that Arbitrum One is going to be moving towards permissionless validation sooner rather than later. Right now, the validation is permissioned. It's done by validators that the Off-Chain Labs team have picked themselves, but in the future, anyone will be able to become a validator on the Arbitrum One network, and of course, a sequencer as well. And it's kind of crazy on the timing here, right? Because right now, Arbitrum One has fraud proofs enabled, they have permission validation and a permission sequencing or a single sequencer that they run. And if you look at the other popular optimistic rollup, Optimism, they have the same kind of thing with the sequencer, but they don't have fraud proofs at all right now. And they also have permissioned a validation there, I believe. So it's going to be curious to see if Arbitrum is able to decentralize both their validator and sequencer, or at least make it permissionless, before Optimism does their fraud proofs. Because Optimism have been working on their fraud proofs for a very long time now, and they're still not live, which I'm puzzled by that, honestly. I don't know why they're not live. I wonder if they're going to skip over fraud proofs altogether and just go straight to validity proofs, which is what ZK rollups normally use. But I'm not sure. I haven't really seen any movement there. There is a GitHub repo called Canon. That's the fraud proof system that Optimism wanted to use for the OP stack, but it's kind of curious because the fraud proving system for the OP stack means that it's going to be used by all of the L2 chains that are built using the OP stack. So if there's no fraud proof system there, then those other chains built using OP stack can't use it, obviously. So I do wonder if they're just considering skipping over fraud proofs and going straight to validity proofs, just because I do think the end game is validity proofs even for like the existing optimistic rollups. And I think that they're being built that way as well. I mean, with Arbitrum's Nitro upgrade, it's been built to be validity proof compatible from what I know. With the Bedrock upgrade for Optimism was the same deal there. So yeah, I'm curious to see how that's all going to shake out. But great to see here that that Arbitrum is already moving towards permissionless validation. And thank you to Terrence for the alpha leak straight from Paris at ETHCC here. Alright, so there is a new Nethermind client out. Version 1.20.1 is now ready for download. Some of the major features include logs readability, attestation rate, sync times, full pruning, and more. And now you can see that the Nethermind logs actually look a lot better now They've been, I believe, color-coded, and they've also got, they've been split out more, and they've been formatted better. So you can see here in this screenshot that was posted by Marek what this kind of looks like right now. And I think in the past, Nethermind logs have been kind of meh, I guess, not the best, but they've obviously been improved with this new version. So if you run Nethermind and you like keeping an eye on logs, this is definitely something to upgrade. But on top of that, there are also other things that I mentioned here, and you can check out the full kind of details in the GitHub, but also in the Twitter thread. You can see here there's boosted block processing priority to improve attestation rates during sync, improvements in sync with faster snap sync, old bodies and old receipts, plus reduced SSD writes requirement, full pruning improvements, better threads management, free disk space check for full pruning, pruning time reduced, and more. And then there's a bunch of other things you can read about. As I said, I'll link it in the YouTube description below. So just great to see Nethermind continuing to push out better versions of their software here, more optimized versions. And, you know, I don't think I've looked at the client diversity website for a couple of weeks on the refuel, but let's bring that up really quickly, because obviously it's all about client diversity when it comes to Ethereum. And you can see we're pretty much at the same. I think Geth creeped back up again to over 50%, but we're pretty much similar to where we've been for at least the last couple of months here. But Nethermind is still in second place, with Aragon and Besu trailing behind. And then obviously we have other newer clients like Reth starting to gain some adoption. But I don't know if this website, clientdiversity.org, is tracking Reth right now. But yeah, that's the current state of it there. So if you're running Nethermind, be sure to upgrade. You can do that by going to the GitHub repo, which I'll link in the YouTube description below. All right, Espresso Systems have announced their partnership with Eigenlayer. So they'll be collaborating to bring restaking to the Espresso sequencer network. Now, for those of you who don't know what Espresso is or what they're basically building a shared sequencer network for all the different L2s on Ethereum. So basically, you can plug into Espresso's sequencer network and not have to use your own sequencer, or not have to try and decentralize your own, or create your own decentralized sequencer network here, which is pretty cool. Obviously, there are trade-offs here, and I am definitely not, have not read up enough on them to understand the trade-offs of shared sequences with single sequences and what it's going to look like in a restaking world with Eigenlayer. But I think at the end of the day, it's all about experimenting, right? It's all about experimenting with these different solutions, seeing which ones it works best, seeing which ones are the most resilient, the most secure, the things that actually provide the most value to each of these ecosystems, and going forward with that. So we don't know. Maybe it ends up being that a single sequencer. And I'm not talking about one sequencer, but I'm talking about a sequencer network per network. So for example, Arbitrum One would have its own set of sequences, and then Optimism mainnet would have its own set of sequences, and so on and so forth, instead of the sequences all being shared between these different networks. Because, what does the economics look like in that world? Where does the value accrue in that world? If there is this shared sequencer network, is Espresso Systems going to have their own token that people can stake on this sequencer network in order to earn fees from the other networks? Okay, but then why would the other networks opt into that if they're losing out on that, because maybe they want their token to be the staking token? So there's a lot of open questions here with how the economics are going to work, how the technical stuff's going to work. But as I said, it's always exciting to see the partnerships here, because this is how we come to those conclusions. We test, we experiment, and we get to a conclusion that will hopefully be good for everyone here. So you can check out more details about this for yourself, as well as the original kind of document about shared sequences from Espresso Systems here, which I've talked about a few months ago. Yeah, it was 4 months ago when they published this. I'll link that in the YouTube description as well for you to check out. All right, L2Beat has listed Base on their website here. Now, of course, Base is not live yet. It is live for developers, but not live for everyone just yet. Obviously not live for users, but you can still keep track of what's going on the network currently. So you can see here, there is almost 1 million TVL in the network so far since going live for developers here. I guess that's kind of noise. It doesn't really mean anything, right? And the other stats like TPS and transaction count don't really mean anything right now. And as expected, they're stuck at stage 0 right now. It's obviously going to be fully centralized. There is no kind of illusions there about them being centralized or decentralized here, and then you've got the full normal kind of like risk breakdown and things like that and security breakdowns and stuff that you see on normal L2B pages. And for those of you who don't know, when you click into a project page and you want to see that the stage that the projects are at and what requirements they've actually met to reach that stage and what needs fixing, you can go to the risk analysis section on each page. You can see it here on the left hand side. You can look at the roll-up stage and then expand these fields here. So you can see that the reason why base is considered stage 0 is because the project calls itself a rollup. L2 state roots are posted to Ethereum L1. Inputs for the state transition function are posted to L1, and an open source node exists that can recreate the state from L1 data. That's because obviously, Base is built on the OP stack. And why Base isn't at stage 1 is because there is no proof system, so they don't meet that requirement. Obviously, as I was discussing before, there's no fraud proof system for the OP stack just yet. Users' withdrawals can be censored by the permissioned operators because there is only a single sequencer. And upgrades executed by actors with more centralized control than a security council provide less than 7 days for users to exit if the permissioned operator is down or censoring. That is, of course, because there is I believe multi-sig or kind of like central admin key on Base, or will be when it first launches. But that's pretty standard stuff, right? No surprises here, but great to see that Base is now listed on L2Beat. I'm actually curious to see how quickly Base climbs up this ranking here. You know, it's ranked by TVL by default when you look here, but you guys know that I'm not a huge fan of the TVL metric, but it's definitely something that most people pay attention to. But I'm very curious to see, how quickly they climb up the ranks here in TVL, as well as just general activity and beyond. So yeah, great to see that, and you can check this out for yourself. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. All right, Oscar here has penned a blog post called A Friendly Introduction to Zero Knowledge. He says here, explore the magic of zero knowledge proofs, what they are, why you should care, and how they work, and where we can use them. For anyone curious about this new tech and want to grok it better, no math or code required. So you can go give this a read for yourself. It is definitely not a light read. It is definitely not a short read, as you can see as I'm scrolling through it. But if you are still confused by how zero knowledge tech works, what zero knowledge proofs are, how they apply to ZK rollups, ZK VMs, all that good stuff, then this post is definitely one to read. Maybe you're going to read it over the weekend or something like that. Some light weekend reading, right? I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. But you know, I've highlighted a bunch of these posts before. I think there's different posts for like different from different authors about ZK, and people have been trying to explain it using different analogies and things like that. At the end of the day, the zero knowledge stuff, like, it can be explained like you're 5, but if you want to dive any deeper, it just starts to become complex. There are some things that are just inherently complex that doesn't matter how much you kind of, I guess, dumb it down. You have this surface level understanding, and then you have like this much deeper understanding, and that is true for a lot of things. But I think that sometimes I see people saying, oh, you know, the zero knowledge stuff or ZK stuff, it's so confusing, how are we ever going to get mass adoption like this? Well, the point is is that, like, the mainstream doesn't need to know how any of this stuff works, right? The whole point of this stuff is for developers, is for technically curious people, is for researchers. They can care about this stuff, and people working in the industry, of course. But for everyday users, for mainstream users, they will not have to care about how this works at all. Just like how you don't have to care or know about how Ethereum works when you make an Ethereum transaction on layer 1. Like, if I send ETH to you, right, or you send ETH to me, there is so much happening in the background during that transaction, but we don't have to be aware of any of that. I mean, obviously I'm aware of what's happening. I'm aware that if I'm using MetaMask, it's probably using the Infura RPC, and then it's relaying the transaction, and then the validators are on the network fighting for blocks. But then there's this MEV Boost sidecar software that is involved with that, and the reason why the network is secure because of the consensus mechanism in place, and because of the economic security. So I can keep going on about it. I can keep saying all these words, and they're not meaningless words, obviously. They're things that actually make sense, but a regular user doesn't need to know about that. And the future state of on-chain things is that a regular user doesn't have to know about anything except what they want to do. If they just want to send ETH, that's it. That's all they should know about. Sending ETH from A to B, that's it. That's as simple as it should be. They shouldn't need to know what gas is. They shouldn't need to know about an Ethereum address. They should just be able to use an ENS name or just like a friendly name, just like how we use the internet, right? Like where you don't need to know what an IP address is, you just need to know the URL. And in the background, DNS does the job of translating all of that and keeping record of what IP address matches to what domain and all that other stuff going on in the background there. But that's the tip of the iceberg. Then you can go into like the networking stack. Then you can go into the general hardware stack, and then the software stack, and then the firmware, and then all the way down as far as you want to go to the bits and bobs, zeros and ones, right? So at the end of the day, it's all about abstraction. Everything is abstracted away, and that is inherited from nature. Like, no one in the world probably knows how the entire human body works, right? Doesn't matter if you're the smartest doctor or scientist out there that studied every body part. We still don't have a full understanding of how the human body works, especially the brain. But most people have no understanding about how their body works, right? And they walk around with it for their entire life. But the point is that nature has abstracted that away. We don't need to know how it works for us to function. All we need to know, really, if you boil it down to its fundamental things, is that we need to survive by eating and by drinking, and that's about it, right? Like we're programmed to do really three things: eat, drink, and procreate. At the end of the day, as humans. So yeah, I'm getting a little bit sidetracked here, I guess, but I'm just trying to illustrate the point that there is layers of abstraction to absolutely everything, and the way you bring a product to the mainstream is by abstracting away as much of the nitty-gritty as possible, because users shouldn't have to become experts in anything new in order to use your product. And the most successful products, or these digital products and services, are the ones that are super easy to use. The most successful apps are the ones that are 1 to 2 clicks to use. That's why, social media apps are literally 1 to 2 clicks. Not even, like a lot of the time, it's like 1 click. You open the app, right? And could you even consider that a click? Once you open the app, open the app, refresh your Twitter feed, there you go, right? You're already into Twitter, you're browsing. So when thinking of it like that, then we're going to get there. And that's why when people say to me, all this stuff's so confusing for everyone, how we're ever going to get mainstream adoption, it's like, well, that's the thing. It's still early. We will get mainstream adoption, but we have to actually abstract away all of this stuff. And the only way we do that is by having people that understand how this works and then push it up the chain, basically. So yeah, anyway. Gonna leave that one at that, but you can check out this blog post for yourself. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. All right, speaking of abstracting things, I did mention a few weeks ago that the Coinbase Wallet launched gasless USDC sends on the Polygon POS chain. And you can see here, Yuga, who is a senior staff software engineer at Coinbase, tweeted out a Twitter thread today saying, "This feature did not require smart contracts or EIP or ERC 4337 account abstraction. Instead, it relied on a different standard called metatransactions." And then Yuga continues by saying, "Metatransactions are defined in EIP 3009, in part authored by former Coinbase employees, including Pete here. Inspired by the previous EIP 2612, it makes some security and usability improvements to the use of random nonces and ensuring eschewing the transfer from approved pattern." So I guess this is all the technical details of how this works. You can go read Yuga's thread for yourself here. But yeah, this is another way of doing gasless transactions. There really is kind of 3 ways that I know of. There's probably more ways of doing it. Maybe there's 4 ways off the top of my head. So there's this way with meta transactions. Then there is the second way, which is off-chain kind of signing of orders, and then the gas fee is paid by the person who is processing that order, or the market maker that is processing that order, and they bake it into their model and they pay the fee. Then there is someone else paying the fee for you, basically, which is basically what meta transactions are, I guess, as well. And then there's 1 or 2 other ways that just elude me right now in terms of doing gasless transactions. There's the account abstraction way, of course, and then there's just making the transaction free, I guess. But there are multiple ways of doing it. And again, this goes back to what I was saying about account abstraction, or sorry, layers of abstraction, I should say, is that we are going to abstract away pretty much everything so that it really is just 1 to 2 clicks to send money instantly anywhere around the world via crypto. Doesn't matter if it's ETH, doesn't matter if it's stablecoins, doesn't matter if it's your favorite token or NFT or anything else out there. The point is that we're going to get to the point where users can just do this very, very easily. So if you want to learn more about how Coinbase is doing it with meta transactions, you can check out Yuga's thread for yourself. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. All right, Ethena Labs has announced their fundraise today. So they've raised $6.5 million in a seed round led by Dragonfly Capital with participation from a bunch of other funds and angels. Now, of course, I am going to disclose here that I am an angel investor in Ethena. I have been talking to the founder for quite a while now. It's a very interesting project, and I'm going to explain to you basically what it is. So they're making two kind of key products for the crypto space right now. So you can see here, the first is a scalable crypto native stablecoin called USDe, and USDe is fully collateralized on-chain and maintains stability through delta hedging ETH collateral on centralized and decentralized exchanges. And the second product will build upon USDe by capturing STETH yield and the basis in futures markets. This will enable the first globally accessible and permissionless crypto savings instrument, the Internet Bond. So in plain English, what it basically means is that this stablecoin is going to be collateralized, fully collateralized, and then there is going to be a product built on top of that. It's going to be collateralized, I should say, with kind of like a STETH and other kind of staked ETH tokens, and then there'll be a product built on top of that to capture that yield and the basis points from futures markets, and then basically bake all of that yield into the stablecoin itself, rather than the yield being leaked elsewhere. Because for those of you who don't know, centralized stablecoins, the way they work today, like USDC and USDT, the reason why Tether and Circle have these products is that they take dollars in to issue these stablecoins, but then they keep those dollars in a bank account, or they buy treasuries with them and bonds with them, or they buy other assets with them, and they earn a yield or a return on those assets, and they profit from it. Now, if all you were to do was to buy basically treasury bonds right now in the US, I think they're paying out like 4%. You would be making a 4% yearly return on the dollars in your account. Now, what is the market cap of Tether right now? Well, it's huge, right? Tether's market cap is over $80 billion right now. It's $83 billion. I just checked it. So if you're earning 4%, Tether's balance sheet isn't all in treasuries, but let's just say it is for argument's sake here. If you're earning 4% on $83 billion, right, because the yield is not going to USDT holders, obviously, it's only going to the dollars that are backing USDT, that is a shit ton of money. Like, that is, if I'm doing my napkin math correctly here, 10% would be 8.3 billion. Then you basically halve that and go a little bit more. $4 billion a year, literally for not really doing much, right? For just providing the infrastructure to redeem and mint these stable coins through different bank accounts and having it sitting in a bank account, right? So it's a very lucrative business. It's a very it's not risk-free, but it's like it's low risk. It's a low-risk business. So what would happen if we actually made a stablecoin, not a centralized one, a stablecoin that was fully collateralized by not US dollars, by staked ETH, for example, and then we fed that yield not just from staked ETH, but from the spread, the basis kind of spread on futures markets, and we fed that into the stablecoin itself. Well, then it would be returned to users. So USDe, in this kind of like world, as Ethena Labs says here, becomes an internet bond. It becomes something you can hold, and it is a kind of like real yield, right? It is not being inflated by anything. Now, of course, you could put that USDe into something else, like a money market, or an LP, or another farm, and someone could pay you tokens on top of that for doing that. But just on its own, this is what it kind of enables here, which I thought was pretty cool. And you guys know my general view on stablecoins is, at least fiat-pegged stablecoins, is that I think that they're not going to become like a global thing where essentially everyone's using a fiat-pegged stablecoin as part of like their day-to-day, or I should say a decentralized one. A centralized one can be used as part of day-to-day because you can just back it with real dollars. But when it comes to decentralized stablecoins, you're always limited by the collateral type, right? And you have to have a collateral, and you have to have some backing there. Otherwise, you end up like UST from Terra, right? So you definitely always need collateral backing it up. But that incurs an inherent limitation. But that doesn't mean that these decentralized fiat-pegged stablecoins shouldn't be attempted or shouldn't be put out there. They're definitely very useful for the kind of like on-chain crypto economy. As we've seen, people like them. You know, DAI is still relatively pretty big, and there's other stablecoins like Go that launched last week. And I actually mentioned this to the founder when I got on a call with him the first time. I'm like, hey, like generally I'm pretty bearish on fiat peg stablecoins being able to scale as well as being decentralized. And he kind of said to me, he had a really good answer. He's like, well, it doesn't really matter. We don't need to grow this thing to be to take over the world, right? We don't need to grow it to take over all the money in the world and to basically replace the US dollar for it to be very valuable. We just need it to be valuable within the crypto ecosystem. It can be valuable within the on-chain ecosystem, and as long as people are using it and people are getting value out of it, then that makes it valuable, right? It makes it valuable as well because you've got that inbuilt yield. And I was like, you know what? That's a good way of thinking about it. Like, I'm always thinking about it in the grand terms, but if you think about it in just those kind of terms, in just like the on-chain world and what the product actually is, where it is differentiated from other products out there, I was like, you know what? This sounds cool. This is something that I want to see built. This is something that I want to be a part of, and that's why I invested as an angel investor in this round here. So hopefully that gives you some context about Ethena. You can go check out this announcement thread for yourself, which I'll link in the YouTube description below for you to do so, and go follow the Ethena Labs account if you would like to. And also, this falls into the camp of DeFi projects that I've funded recently or that I've invested in recently that I feel are innovating and aren't just doing the same thing that has been done before. I know there has been various different attempts at stablecoins like this, but I think that there is a unique kind of value prop here, and I really want to see it build. I really want to see it grow, and I want to see what ends up happening with this, and if it succeeds, if it succeeds or not. Because at the end of the day, I think that when I invest in things, I invest in them because a lot of the time, especially at the seed stage, because I really like the founder, I really like the team. I think that they really want to build something, and even if there is a potential low chance of it working, I still want to back them. I still want to fund them because I think it's important for innovation. It's important to experiment with these sorts of things, and that's what Ethereum is all about. At the end of the day, it's about experimenting with new models of doing various different things. And if I can help that along in any way I can, then I will. So yeah. Anyway, I will link this thread in the YouTube description below for you to check out. All right, last up here, we have an announcement from Superfluid. So they've introduced something called Superfluid Subscriptions, the open source, programmable, and customizable Web3 checkout toolkit that allows you to generate recurring revenue. So they continue by saying, you can monetize access to anything, your software, your APIs, your content, your community, or grow your donor pool as a public good or creator. Request payments from customers, businesses, or individuals alike directly on your website via a shareable link. In the links just here, superfluid.finance/subscriptions here, and you can go check this out for yourself. And this is basically a tool for, I guess, like developers to use here, where you can try the widget builder and then basically put this widget into your website and do subscriptions and all that good stuff there. And yeah, they go into more detail about this in the Twitter thread, as well as a demo. So there's actually a demo here that you can look at. So basically, if there's a pricing plan, I guess, table here with different price points. And this is just, as I said, a demo. You get $29 per user, $99 per user, or $1,000 per user. If we click subscribe on the $29 per user, it brings up a nice little interface here of kind of like the Superfluid interface of what network and token you want to use. So if you want to use Polygon Mumbai, which is the Polygon testnet with USDC, continue. Wrap to super tokens here, and then review the transactions. Let's continue, and then it shows you the transactions here, and then you put the transaction through. And I'm not going to do that now, but yeah, that's just a demo there for you to go check out, as well as all the extra info in this Twitter thread here. And this is again speaks to the stuff I was talking about before about these layers of abstraction. By having an easy to use customizable widget built by Superfluid, you can now very easily plug this into your own website or into your own kind of like checkout experience, and users can get started with it straight away without you having to build it yourself. And it's all abstracted away even for the developers. So very important for this stuff to be, for this infrastructure to be put out there, and for it to allow developers to build with it. So kudos to Superfluid for this, but I think on that note, that's going to be it for today. So thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks everyone.